And we are live. Hello, everybody. Professor Chris here with Beacon DeFi. Here with our Beat the Banks weekly free training. But today we're going to do something a little bit different. We've got a really great interview subject here. We have Brian here, one of our beloved members, one of our leaders in our community. Just wanted to kind of change it up a little bit. Talk with Brian, at least give you guys who watch our trainings or just see about us every week. Ultimately, you want to know, are people in our group successful? And this man right here is absolutely successful. So Brian, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for being here with me today. Do me a quick favor and just kind of introduce yourself to the audience. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how long you've been in the space.
Sure. So I'm an IT professional, father of four. Most of my kids are out of the house now, or half of them are out of the house now, which is great. Looking forward to that. I've got a granddaughter that was just born 2 months ago. So entering into that new chapter of my life, it's been amazing. My career, as I said, my career has been in the IT profession. I've worked up through, help desk and server sysadmin to technology director, my current role. In the last probably 8-9 years, I've been focusing very heavily in terms of like what I do day to day in the cybersecurity space, just because that's the evolving need at the moment. Then I got connected with you guys. I think it was 2021 or 22.
Yeah, a long time ago.
From I think it was a Facebook ad that I clicked on at the time, and just Bitcoin was at above 50 for the first time, I think, at that point, and I was kicking myself for going, man, why didn't I do this when it was at 1,000 or 3,000 or 10,000? Because every one of those milestones that hit was well, it's too late, the money's already been made, and that video that I watched was my introduction to the concepts of DeFi, which was really changed my perspective, understanding that this is more than just buying and selling Bitcoins or Ethereum. And I had done some scammy farms that I had been a part of, made zero money off of it. And I thought, from the technology perspective, that was one of the things that I thought was really interesting about this group was you've said for years, you guys, we're in this for the tech, and then really understanding the technology behind it and what this powers, realizing that, oh no, there is still work to be done and money to be made. And I've been able to bring a lot of my tech perspective into this to kind of understand some moves to make. I'm not a financial expert. My retirement portfolio was very, very boring because it's my retirement portfolio, and I don't want to take risks there. One of the things that I appreciate about the teachings that I've gotten through this group is that I am empowered, and I'm given the freedom to be as risk off as I want to be, and just kind of know what all's out there, find my own comfort level, and then define my own success.
And I think that's a huge point that you just hit on, is that you have the empowerment, the freedom to really just kind of choose your risk area. And we do have multiple members of our group and in our communities rather, that are very risk off. So they're only looking for, really just simple things to do with their crypto, because they purchased some crypto. They heard about Bitcoin a long time ago, regardless if you heard about it at $100 or $81,000. There are people who have crypto and think that the only thing they can do is just hold it on Coinbase and essentially just kind of wait for the market to go up and down. But, as you found out through a lot of things that we've taught, there's way more that you can do with it. So I did want to ask you, before we just kind of go into some of the more nuanced things, what's been your favorite thing that you've been able to do with your crypto and DeFi that's really just kind of been not necessarily your bread and butter, but the part that you find the most interesting?
So from the nerd techie perspective, projects like Nillion and some other ones, where seeing what they're doing with this technology, that's been the fun part. It's like, oh, I can invest in something that is actually accomplishing some things that I've thought for a long time. I mean, just like some crazy fringe stuff. I'm, thinking about, election security. How do I balance the anonymity of a vote with the integrity and security that's required? Well, I'm seeing some projects out there that could get into that if politicians can stay out of it. So that's been the fun side of it. But then also, I'm at a point right now where with the foundation that I've laid with the all-weather portfolio concept, that money that I'm putting in is bearing fruit on a weekly basis. And then I'm able to, shore up that foundation. And then ultimately, one of my long-term goals is to turn this into supplemental income. My favorite thing that I was able to do from a financial perspective is I was able to take some early wins if you remember the summer of DeFi, I had some great wins there, and I was able to pay for my daughter's wedding with that.
Unbelievable.
Which is really cool. I had no idea that I would be able to make that much money that quickly. And then, finding those opportunities to do, you got the slow and steady growth that is your solid, stable base, but then occasionally you'll get those big spikes, moonshots or God candles, whatever you want to call them, that really give you that shot in the arm. And then with the discipline that I learned, which is my third favorite thing, is understanding the disciplines required to do this. With that discipline, take those profits and put them somewhere safe so that I don't lose them doing, getting the adrenaline going and going, ooh, this made it, so it's going to make it again. And then all of a sudden your wins are gone. So those are, I think, my three favorite things: the nerd stuff, the family stuff, and then the financial stuff. Yeah.
I wanted to kind of go into the family part because, like yourself, we're both proud fathers. We both have multiple children. We both have had careers we've balanced while doing this. There's probably, some multiple people, men and women who are out there who are kind of in the same situation. They're trying to figure out what's the best way to balance this. So, I mean, I have my methods, but I wanted to ask you, what's been the balance like for you in terms of being able to manage I guess maybe your research, but also just your overall investment philosophy with having a career, with also having a family?
So one of the things that we did early on, thing one, is I talked about all of this to my wife, who is not as technical as I am, but I mean, we've been married and we communicate like crazy. And so I've said for years that she could probably pass an interview at an IT department, just from all of the jargon that she's picked up from living with me for 20 plus years. And I said, okay, look, this really has some potential. And, she made me be able to explain it in a way that was understandable. And so it's not just holding Bitcoin. It's not just, Bitcoin or Ethereum, or explaining what Ethereum was. And then really funny, the turning point for that was there was a game that we were playing, an iPhone game that we were playing years ago, that when Ethereum started getting above the thousands, she said, wait a minute, I'm seeing this game use some of these concepts in there. It was a freemium game. So when you go to the paid platform, she's like, wait, this is what you've been talking about, isn't it? So, yeah. And so starting to see some of those concepts percolating into a silly part of our life, but even just there. So for me, the balance, to get back to your question, once she bought into the concept, it was, okay, let's get slow. We're going to start slow. We're going to go, obviously everything is risk, but we're going to find the surest thing we can find and the most repeatable thing that we can find. And now, so it was at that point in time, I had just gotten in contact with this group, and there were some trainings that were available, but there was this Friday call that was new stuff every Friday. And I can go back. I still have all the notebooks that I took notes on. And I read these things, and it's like, okay, every time an acronym gets thrown out, my dad was in the military, so acronyms are just part of my daily life. But there's an acronym I didn't know. There's a word that I didn't know. Those early notebooks are filled with stars and circles and highlights of, okay, look this up. What does this mean? What in the world are they talking about? But those so at the beginning, it was probably 2, 3, 4 hours a week of listening on that one call, and then going and finding what all those words meant. And then once that built up some inertia, some momentum, now it's, the time on the calls plus maybe another couple of hours a week that I spend, that I actually, takes up my time doing these things. So it has been fairly easy for me to find that balance because, I have that time alone with my computer anyway because of what I do. So, and it really does get to the point where you can do this in just a couple of hours a week.
Yeah, and I think you hit it on the head. Earlier, you mentioned the word discipline. I think discipline is probably, I want to say 80% of the puzzle, right? Because so much of this is just mental. We
Mhm.
we talk a lot about there's a lot of noise out there, and being able to separate the signal from the noise, especially using communities like ours, is so huge. Uh, I love that you take copious notes, because all I could think of when you were talking about that is it's amazing how much easier this process is for anybody who's coming into this now, right? Because
Oh yeah.
you think about this now, it's like you have literal notes where you're taking down acronyms and stuff like that. I mean, you could have a Perplexity or a GPT or a Venice window open right now, live transcribing what you're saying, and you just speak to it, and it'll actually, do all of that for you. So I wanted to ask, with that in mind, are you using any other technology tools to help you kind of consume all of that? Are you using like an AI agent or an assistant like that to help you with your research?
So yes, I've been experimenting with one. I haven't yet turned one on to do any buys, but I've been I've got GMGN
Yeah,
that we've talked about for months and months. It feels like a year now. Um, and mostly though and then the bot that's there in the community, mostly what I'm doing is what I'm trying to do right now is build something that will take all of the feeds that I have and create those transactions for me. And like I said, very risk off, so I'm behind the curve a little bit. Well, I'm behind the curve from the sense that I know other people are already doing this, but I'm not yet at a point where I could explain what it's doing to a novice, and so I'm not comfortable pulling the trigger on it yet. So right now it's just research and trying to do the things that are repetitive tasks for me, trying to replace those with automation.
love it. We've been doing the same actually, and just to kind of do a quick segue, what he's talking about are things that we present specifically in our community. So if you're not actually, uh, if you're curious about some of the things he just mentioned, and you haven't taken a minute to check us out, please, I recommend you. Where is my screen? There it is. Recommend you check out our free group here, TVL, Total Value Lock from Beacon DeFi. Join the hundreds, nearly thousands of people. We've been around for roughly about a year with this free community. Uh, I do recommend, if you're going to check out anything, check out our Start Here post. This is a quick post with a message from myself and one of my co-founders, Andrew. And we have pathways. So if you're not really sure where to start here. We have a great introduction to DeFi module that's there. What Brian was mentioning is actually part of our mastermind, some of the great value we provide there. So he obviously is using a lot of that value to really just drive a lot of great intelligence, a lot of really great tools that are going to help him with his journey here in self-custody, as well as in DeFi, in making his assets work for him. So feel free to join our group. It's absolutely free. Let me put the banner here so you can get it here on the bottom. Absolutely free. School.com/beacon. Again, school.com/beacon. Absolutely free. Learn from the best in the business. And this is the platform, essentially where the content came from that got Brian into this. And Brian's doing a fantastic job. He's really meeting a lot of his goals. And he's learned so much, which is the one thing that myself as an educator is the biggest priority for me, because we're here really to help people understand how DeFi works, how it's the future of finance. It'll most likely be the way that we do business moving forward, specifically with a lot of the pro-crypto administrative policies from the US government currently, and just a lot of other protocols that are coming out that are changing the way that you as a person and get invested into crypto and digital assets. So get those assets working for you here in DeFi. Learn how to do it here at our free group at school.com/beacon. Hide that. We'll come back to you and I wanted to get back to a specific question I wanted to ask you, which is, you have a great quote that you've put inside TVL, and I wanted to kind of, talk a little bit about eating the elephant, because for a lot of people, they walk in and they check everything out, and they're a little bit overwhelmed, I think is really the best way to describe it. And for most people, understanding how DeFi works, even with all of the new things, all the automations, all of the easier onboarding options that we have now that we didn't have 2 or 3 years ago, it can still be quite overwhelming. So for you and your journey, you often mention eating the elephant. So just kind of wanted to get that metaphor from you, from your perspective on how that works. And really, as you mentioned, it's all just a matter of discipline. If you really have the passion for this, how do you keep eating the elephant?
So that comes from my first job was I did IT support at an engineering company, and we were trying to solve, at that point in time, we were doing a huge migration. They had a homegrown system for all of their planning and project scheduling and everything, and we were going to something that was a commercial off-the-shelf product. And one of the guys said, "Well, we got to eat the elephant." And I'm looking around the room going, I'm the 22-year-old guy. What do you mean eating the elephant? And I said, "Well, if you have to eat an elephant, how do you do it?" And I don't know. And he said, "1 bite at a time." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And that clicked with me, and I've said it ever since. Whenever there's something large and complex that you have to tackle, if you've made the decision that you're going to do it, there's going to be a lot going on. Or, walking into a very messy room, what do? You pick up the first thing you see that's not where it belongs, and you go put it where it belongs. And then you just go to the next thing. It really comes down to doing the next right thing. And then you just do that. And then the next thing you know, you've eaten the elephant. And, you're right to talk about the maturity of the tools has come a long way just in the last 2 years. All the notes that I took, a lot of them were, okay, to set up this position, you've got to come here, you got to deposit your stuff over here, then you got to pull it down, then you got to move it up, then you got to, trade this for that. Now, there's places you can go where that's 3 mouse clicks and you're done. And instead of taking an hour to set up a position, it takes 3 minutes, which is incredible. It's highly profitable. So when I talk about eating the elephant, what I'm talking about is don't get overwhelmed. Because another thing that I took from that first job is one of my mentors in that job said, "Brian, unless you are Bill Gates or Steve Jobs or Larry Ellison or, this was before Meta became a company, one of 4 or 5, 6 people in the world, unless you're one of those 6 people that everybody knows, there is always going to be someone who knows more than you about everything. So just accept that reality, put yourself in learner mode, and understand that there's always more to know." And once you accept that reality, it makes eating the elephant a lot easier, because I'm not overwhelmed by hugeness anymore. I expect hugeness, but then I also have cultivated a discipline and a skill to find the bite-sized chunk of, okay, what's the first thing that I need to do? Okay, let me master that. Let me build up the discipline around getting that done. And then I can go to the next step.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you laid that out. Thank you so much, because ultimately this is what we teach in our group with our system, our Beacon Ascend framework, and having an organization to this process, right? You've mentioned it a couple of times, our all-weather portfolio, where we have your allocation of buckets, so you can actually have the freedom to have your portfolio be whatever it is that you have. You just have it within risk buckets. So you're not putting everything in one. We see people all the time like, "Oh, I put all of my money in Trump." Why would you do that? Curiosity. It's like,
yeah,
it's like you gotta be smart about it, right? I often say, treat this like a business. So don't farm with emotion. Don't put all this in there. Have a routine, have a plan. And these are all things that we talk about and build with our members in our community. So I do want to ask about your plan, your weekly or daily routine with, how you do your farming or even how you do your research. Can you tell us a little bit about how you tackle that?
Sure. So my weekly routine happens mostly on Fridays.
Okay.
My job right now, I work from home on Fridays, and so I have mental energy that I can devote to this. And so on Fridays, I'll do the minutia. I'll collect everything, update the spreadsheet with position values and all that kind of stuff. Then during the week, what I'm doing is I'm building my to-do list for Friday. Are there some opportunities that I miss in doing that? Yes, absolutely. There are. Are there some things that if I was awake at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday that I could take advantage of that I missed? Yes, absolutely. But I've come to peace with that because that's what works for me. Then in terms, so that's my weekly discipline of checking balances, updating things. What do I do with gains? When do I cut my losses? All of that kind of stuff. Then during the week, I'm watching feeds. I'm watching social feeds, and I'm taking notes, and I'm looking at what's going on in the school community and the other resources that you guys provide, and just gathering, like I said, gathering that to-do list. And I use several task management tools to help me. Okay, when I get to Friday, all right, got to do this, got to do this, got to do this, got to do this, and then when it's paycheck time, I have a certain amount of money that I take from my paycheck and I deposit. And then I have a list of things that I'm going to do with that deposit. And then I track those. And that really has been built up over time of just figuring out what works with me, which gets to another strength, I think, of the TVO community, which is, I did Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace years and years ago. And one of the things that I took away from that is, this is your money. Make sure that you're spending your money, because if you don't, your money will spend itself. And that principle, that concept is so applicable to the world of DeFi. This is our money, and we get to determine what happens with our money in a way that doesn't happen when we put it in a bank account or invest with it in other more traditional ways, down to the level of I determine which companies can use my money, which is an amazing amount of freedom and power. And so in terms of how I'm going to grow it, I love the way that it has democratized, my financial existence. Another thing that I think is great about the power of just DeFi as a concept is when I succeed, everyone succeeds. This is the antithesis of competition in a lot of ways. When we post our wins in school, then, one of the things that I hope is that other people join that program, whatever it is, so that, another saying that I use a lot is all boats rise with the tide. As the tide comes in, everyone who's there, and what we've done is we've firmed up the foundation for that project, so we guarantee its success through partnership, not through, competition is healthy, but not through, my success doesn't take away from yours, it actually empowers yours, which I think is one of the amazingly powerful things about DeFi.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. And I think for me, the one part that I wanted to, the one takeaway I got off of that is that you really enjoy not only just the freedom with self-custody. And that's probably the biggest thing that people have the biggest issue with at the beginning, is that, guys, you're your own bank in this situation. You control where your funds are going. You're not putting it with a hedge fund manager. No one's making commission off of you outside of you, yourself, and where you stake your money, where you're leasing your capital out to whatever protocol, and they give you that incentivized yield for doing so. Having that freedom is just so powerful. The ability to just go to whatever ecosystem you want and you own your data. That's really the key about Web3, and that's kind of the underpinnings of what we're in now, is Web3 in this space, where you own your data and you get to choose what you do with it. So it's such a powerful concept, a simple concept that I think a lot of people overlook because they're too maybe engrossed in the idea of making that 1000x, when really you should be setting yourself up to diversify your portfolio amongst multiple different protocols and positions out here, earning in excess of 10, 50, 100, 1000%, depending on the protocol, obviously. And
Mhm.
understanding that what you're doing here is setting yourself up for success later on. We often say, there's a stat that even the best hedge fund manager using AI just playing the stock market earns roughly about 30% per year. And most people are never going to get access to that. So why not be in a system where you get access to as many things as possible? The hardest part, honestly, is just figuring out what to choose.
Right.
And that brings me up to my next question for you is, uh, understanding you've been with our group for multiple years now, could you have done this alone?
No, absolutely not. And I actually came to this group having tried to do it alone and lost a lot of the money that I had put into it. Uh, you know, I had overtime before I found this group. I had put in, maybe $500 into something, and what
Right.
did I have to show for it? I had less than $70 to show for it.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, this is not sustainable. We can't keep doing this. And then found this group laying under, and we've mentioned the all weather portfolio a couple of times. That really is the key to success is layering your funds in at different risk profiles so that you have, I'll call it a sure thing. Understand there's an asterisk and a caveat and not financial advice. Do your own research. Nothing is guaranteed. Past successes do not equal future gains. Is that all the disclaimer? I think I'm covered.
We'll put a disclaimer on it. Don't worry.
Okay, great. Um, but we talk. Everybody wants that 1000x moment, and it's a great emotional high. But this is not the place for our emotions. This is a place for our discipline, and this is a place for um, you know serious thought, serious business. So how do I do that? Well, I do that with some of the things that are more quote unquote boring, like, oh gosh, this is only 10%. Well, wait a minute. How hard do I have to work in the stock market to find something that gives me a 10% APY? It's a lot. I mean, you can find them, sure, but finding 30% in TradFi is very rare, and forget anything higher than that. So, but in my particular portfolio right now, and I've posted some of the wins on the in school, with a new chain that's out there with Barachain. Those wins are huge. Are they going to
Yeah.
last forever? No, they're not. But for right now, the iron's hot, so we're going to strike right now, and then we've got to check our emotions at the door and realize that when that curve starts to go, I have no problem pulling that out and putting it into something a lot more boring. That's, when I say boring, only 15 to 25%, but 15 to 25% spread out over, multiple positions, that equals the power of 100x,
Exactly. And
which
think about
which is
think
the
about it this
exception.
way. You have an allocation set up where you have, on one side you just have a bunch of high conviction assets that earn, as you say, 10 to 30%. And that's a fantastic rate. They're just out there quietly earning that for you in the background. Stable coins, really huge blue chips. And on the right, you're finding some narrative plays that are earning in excess of, 200-300%. They don't last as long, but your portfolio is working for you in multiple ways, giving you multiple levels of performance through multiple situations. And I think having the ability to both uh, identify those and capitalize on them is, I think, a huge credit to you, going through and listening and checking out as much content as possible, being a sponge to at least identify that. Because one thing that I can definitely point to with most of our successful members is that they're able to be well prepared and be well educated to identify patterns, because as you mentioned, there's a tech piece to this where the majority of these projects are very familiar to each other, because a lot of this stuff is open source. And that's
Mhm.
a great thing, because it allows for multiple groups and entities to specifically battle test and harden a lot of the code. Here in DeFi, a lot of the functionality is backed by what we call smart contracts, and they are, once they're deployed, they are what we call immutable, meaning they can't be manipulated, they can't be changed. And so that really brings a whole self-custody, code is law down here. It's up to you to find these opportunities. Obviously, we can't guarantee the times or how everything is moving because, frankly, it's an unregulated system, but that you can use that to your advantage because you can find multiple opportunities to find really just the best opportunities at all times for you. Does that mean that you have to be very active in what you do? It can be, but as you said, there's a lot of these quote unquote boring, farms that are like 10 to 25%, which will be way better than you'll get at your credit union or your bank or anything like a CD. And you just have to check on it like once a month, once every 2 months, if you really want to, and they'll continue to grind out really great return for you. Okay. What I wanted to ask for you also as well is, you mentioned a lot in your routine about how you onboard your funds. There's going to be a lot of people who watch this and watching this live. Thanks for everybody who's joining us. How do you recommend people get into DeFi when they're first starting out? Because let's say they don't have a ton of time. Maybe they do have a half day on Friday, or they have a ton of time on Saturday for whatever reason, and they have low funds or something like that. What's your advice for anyone who wants to find the best success moving forward when they're first starting out?
I would say two things. One, shameless plug, go to school.com/beacon. And click the start here. And then there are resources there on onboarding with as little as $25. And that's where I started. When I first got plugged into this group. In fact, that was one of the things that grabbed me into this community. The very first call that I was on, I don't remember what the position was because it was a long time ago, but you said, I'm going to show you how to do this with $25. And we walked through, understanding that, there's no such thing as too small, really. If of course there's fees and all that kind of stuff, but whatever. But if you've got $25, and if you've got $25, then you can come in here and you can make success out of that, and then that becomes repeatable. And then the next thing you know, you've done $25 10 times, over the course of 5 months, and then you've got $250, and repeat that, and it grows a lot faster than you think. Now, practical steps. I use Coinbase to onboard from my bank. Back in the day, they discontinued this last year, but they used to allow you to set up a direct deposit into a Coinbase account. They don't do that anymore, unfortunately. Coinbase also happens to have some pretty good training videos, how-tos, and things like that. But practical first steps to get your money on chain, we call it, is I would set up a Coinbase account. Before I did that, though, I would watch the videos on operational security, because one of the things that we haven't talked about that much today, but one of the things that you always need to keep in mind, yes, you have tremendous freedom. Yes, you have control over where your money goes until someone steals something that gives them the ability to direct your funds away from where you put them. And it's unregulated, as you said, and that means there are no protections, and there's great opportunity there. And I don't mean to scare anybody. Again, I come from the cybersecurity world, and so I live this. There is a healthy paranoia. Trust nothing. That's the great thing about about Web 3.0 and smart contracts and all of that. Yes, they're immutable. Yes, they're also transparent. Anyone can see them. So when we've seen some of the great compromises, one of the interesting things is that we can go back and reconstruct those, and they do. And in cases where they've been able to recover funds, they've been able to recover funds specifically because the contracts are public. It's open source. It's immutable. We know exactly what happened. Sorry, rabbit trailed a little bit there.
No, you're fine. You're actually segueing into the next question I had for you.
Okay, great.
Keep going.
So understanding those operational security basics, it is very easy to get money out of a bank account into Coinbase, and then from there up to on-chain, then that gives you the ability, or that gives you the access to all of these opportunities that we're talking about.
Excellent. Yeah, and just to segue into the next question, which is about operational security. It's funny. I went to send you the link to to join the panel, and I sent it to you in a direct message on Discord, and you didn't see it because you have your DMs turned off.
Yep.
And that's completely reasonable. That's on me for forgetting about that. So let's kind of go into that. We talk about security is probably the number one thing we talk about. A lot of people, I remember the first time I had the original Beat the Banks call, it was on security, and people were in the comments section and they were upset. They were like, why are you talking about security? Show me where all the yield is. I'm like, first of all, I will.
Yeah.
But if you don't understand how to be safe in this system, you're going to get got. You're going to get wrecked.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to do crazy. And I've seen it all, ladies and gentlemen. I've seen people send $10,000 to the wrong wallet. I've seen someone sent $1.5 million to the wrong bridge address. I've seen literally someone telling me that they actually, but in terms of unstaking their large Aave position, they just swapped it. And I said, what do you mean you just swapped it? Again, you have to understand the nuances and the safety and the security. There is an acronym we talk about here called FOMO, which is the fear of missing out. And pair that with things like Dunning-Kruger, where you actually think you know more than you really know. You will get humbled so quickly in this space if you don't step back, take your time, and you can't see it here, but this little thing behind me says don't trust, verify. Always verify, take your time. A lot of the ecosystem is set up to stop you from going quickly. And it can be honestly quite annoying, but security is meant to be annoying, ladies and gentlemen. Keep that in mind. So when you're in this space, understand that at least for us at Beacon, security is paramount. For us, the best way to make money in crypto is to not lose it. So for us, max gains, max protection of wealth. So just as a segue into the question, I wanted to ask you, what are some major things with OPSEC, or what we call operational security, that you do to keep yourself safe?
Number one, do not, and I mean, this comes from my IT profession, so I came into this world knowing this one. Do not ever write down a password. I mean, please, and do not reuse a password. Every account that you have, your money. You talk about people who say, show me where the yields are. Okay, great. I'll show you where the yields are. Do you want to keep them? Or do you want to give them to the guy that kicked in your front door, digitally speaking, and took your stuff? Or do you want to give them to the guy who didn't even have to kick in your front door because you forgot to close and lock it? And yeah, don't trust, verify. All of these are they're kind of buzz phrases that we use, but again, it's all about building that discipline. Operational security is building habits and building muscle memory into the way that you go about what you're doing. So don't reuse passwords. Never, ever, ever, ever tell anyone your seed phrase or communicate that outside of, ever. No, never, ever, ever. If anyone asks for it, they're not your friend. Use a hardware wallet. There are several that we recommend. Go to the school.com/beacon. There's all the information on how to do all of these things that I'm mentioning is there in much more organized and usable format than what we're going through here. But passwords, seed phrases, hardware wallets. I have a separate computer that I use only for DeFi transactions. It's not my work laptop. It's not my home laptop. It's not my phone, although there are some interesting things you can do with mobile devices now. But this machine sits, and that's the only thing that happens to it. Use a secure browser. We recommend Brave browser. Those are just off the top of my head 4 or 5 very basic things that are now so much second nature that it's somewhat of an effort for me to remember all of them, because I also don't remember how to walk. I just do it.
You just do it. Love it.
But also always check yourself. And you mentioned security is supposed to be disruptive. It absolutely is supposed to be disruptive. In order to walk into your house, you got to pull your keys out of your pocket. or if you've got a smart lock, you've got to punch in a code or a thumbprint or something. You've got to do something in order to get access to the place where you need to feel safe, your home. Well, this is your Web3 home. This is where you've put everything that is digitally valuable to you. So you've got to treat it with that level of seriousness, because it's only a matter of time. An individual doesn't have to know who you are to target you. I mean, we talk about AI bots finding the best opportunities for investments. There are also AI bots that find the best opportunities for exploits. And if your accounts, if your wallets are unsecured in that fashion, they'll find you, they'll drain you, and then all those great wins that you wanted are gone. So it's not supposed to be it's not supposed to be prohibitively scary. It's supposed to scare you just enough to take it seriously, so that you develop the discipline to protect the things that are precious to you.
And I think that's the biggest lesson there, right? There are a lot of people in this space who don't take it seriously enough. Don't be one of those people. Take it seriously, from the ground up, and it'll just be muscle memory. It'll just be something that you're supposed to do. And that's the key to winning, is to be prepared, be educated, and be safe. So definitely thanks for all of that. That's fantastic. I do have 2 quick questions to ask you before I let you go, just to be respectful of your time. And thank you again, Brian, so much for joining us today. I think a lot of the insights you have are so helpful for so many people who are listening here who, don't really do DeFi because they don't know a whole lot about it, but especially they're a little too scared to kind of really have that responsibility. So I think you being here, sharing your story, and really just giving a really simple explanation to so many things, I think is so excellent, because a lot of this can be hard to describe to a lot of people. So I think you've brought a lot of great brevity and a lot of simple examples, and I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I hope it's been helpful.
Yes, I think so. I wanted to ask, first off, what do you think has been the biggest secret to your success?
Be teachable. Learn. I mean, I can't. I came into this knowing that I knew nothing. Socrates said that's the beginning of wisdom, is knowing that you know nothing, and being in that mode where it does a couple of things. One, it makes me teachable, and it allows me to form the discipline that we've talked about. But another thing that it does is it puts me in a frame of mind where I can go and find things because I'm looking for them, because I know that they exist and I know that I don't know them. If I relied on what I already know all the time, I would never grow beyond a certain point. So I would say that key to this has to be a curiosity and a desire and a passion for learning. You have to have it, because otherwise what you're doing is you're in effect relying on the equivalent of a hedge fund manager, and you're just giving money away at that point. So that before anything is foundational.
Awesome. I'll leave you this question. With all of the, everything you've been able to use at your disposal, how has the resources at Beacon helped you meet your DeFi investment goals?
Couldn't have done it without it. How have they helped? I mean, you taught me everything I know except how to spell Bitcoin, honestly. So, and that's not overstating, that's not exaggerating. I literally could not have done this without the community at Beacon DeFi. And you personally, Chris, you are an amazing mentor and teacher, and that attitude, it communicates itself into the community. And just, speaking as a community member for a moment, it makes us feel safe, and it enables us to be vulnerable with our curiosity, because that's scary. That really is scary, particularly when we're talking about technology, when we're talking about money. People don't like to be vulnerable because they either look stupid or they risk money. And that's one of the things that Beacon as a community gives us the freedom to do. We have the freedom to come to the community not knowing something, and we have the comfort, the assurance really, knowing that we will leave knowing what we didn't know. So there is no possible way for me to overstate how critical the Beacon community has been to my success.
That's very kind of you. Thank you so much. Thanks for being a fantastic community member, helping being a shining member of what we teach and what we talk about here. I actually forgot to ask you, what's either your biggest or your most favorite win over what you've been going through?
I mentioned being able to pay for my daughter's wedding. That's my favorite win. Today, I would say my favorite, and okay, you talk about don't invest emotionally. So
right.
My granddaughter is 2 months old. Barachain launched very close to her birthday, and her name or her nickname, the name that the family's calling her, is Honey. Oh. And so I am putting stuff in those positions, and right now those are my favorite positions, just because every time I look at them, and they happen to be growing as quickly as she is. So for the moment, those are some really good wins. That's been recently, my favorite thing. Back in the day, and of course they're gone now, or they're all but gone now. But some of my early stuff was with the Radiant community, and then when Beefy became kind of what it is today, that really is what kickstarted my ability to spend as little time with this as I do. So those I think are some of my favorite positions.
And I think you hit on something that I think for me has just been the biggest key, is that it's giving you time back, the peace of mind to give you more time back with your family. So you've put the time into this. It's a lot more hands off. You have more time to spend with your beautiful granddaughter. I love that you call her Honey. For those interested, Honey is actually a stable coin in the Barachain ecosystem. Really great yields actually on USDC.E and Honey pairs. If you're ever curious about that, you can of course learn that in our communities. I did want to bring that up really quickly again and again. Thank you so much, Brian, for your time, sharing your story, and I enjoyed talking with you. There's some things about you I actually didn't know. So,
that's great.
And that's fantastic. And I love that. Again, it really hit me in the feels that you were so kind and saying that I'm a direct impact on how your success has been going. But I think you hit on the biggest thing, is that you got to be teachable. You got to be humble enough and understand that you're going to learn a lot of things here that you didn't realize, and it's a consistent learning journey. I learn stuff all the time. And I've been doing this for 5 years. There's new stuff that's coming, but as Brian said, we're in this for the tech. We're in this because we really truly believe this is the future of how we're going to be doing business, whether it's through finance, whether it's through investing, whatever is out there. You just can't, from a risk-adjusted return, it's hard to argue with all of the ease that we've been able to make really great yields. And you can do that, of course, coming to our free community here, school.com/beacon. Again, check out the Start Here post so you can get access to the free content. Or if you want to get there faster, we have our Beacon Accelerator offer that's available to get you there in 90 days or less. And of course, we have our Beacon Mastermind for those who want to get there in less than 30 days, one-on-one coaching, direct access to the community and the team, and be amongst like-minded investors, the best of the best, industry insiders, live calls, newsletters, anything you can think of. We got in the mastermind for you to help you be the most successful investor you can here in DeFi. So again, to get started, of course, absolutely completely free, school.com/beacon. And Brian, thank you again so much for your time. We'll see you around on TVL in the mastermind. And thanks for joining us today, guys. And we'll see you next Wednesday for our TVL podcast. We already have 3 excellent panelists lined up from all around Web3, people we met over at ETH Denver who are just really excited to meet you guys and tell you about, not only just give their takes on what's going on in the week's news, but they're actually there to show you some of the great projects they're working on. So excited to introduce you to them. So again, thank you, Brian, so much, and we'll see you next week. Take care and have a great weekend, everybody. As we say here, beacons up, banks down. Take care, everyone. Keep beating those banks.